The last one of your guys' 7th.
And Gunner got a pump.
And Gunner got the. That just makes it sound weird too. Monday, May 20th. Last time when we get a chance to go through and talk about that was then, this is now. I did put your speech grade on here. It's in the slot that says EX2 for exam 2. It does not count towards your 9 weeks grade. It counts towards your semester grade. So if you don't remember what your speech grade was, it is listed on there for you to see. And then I'm hoping Friday's conversation talk was good for you guys, and hopefully it helps you out.
I took it very good.
I almost fell asleep.
Different.
Again, this goes through tomorrow for those of you who are wanting to. You can, except for the signing my podium, that'll start on Wednesday. I will pull off my podium sides and put them over here to this side, and you can actually put them on my desk over there. And then you are welcome to sign them on those days. You can still buy things, it's just going to be before or after class. But then if you want to sign the podium, that starts Wednesday of this week.
What's the most points in like your class?
I have a kid that's over 300.
Is that right? In this class? No, Kyle has like 355.
Mr. Brovicast, can I have someone else write it for me? Because like I have very bad handwriting.
So you want to buy it and then have someone else write it?
Yeah, but like what I want.
Yes, that's up to you. If you have someone that you trust to do it.
Who has the best handwriting?
It's up to you.
Alright.
Since I showed you guys my previous soccer game, we had our last game of the season yesterday.
Hey, me too!
Yeah. We have our new season in 2 weeks, but you guys won't be here by the time I'm playing in that season. But it was hot and rough yesterday. We also played.
This is too hot.
There's a young team because all of us old people, and there's a team with a bunch of college kids that are in their 20s that run around nonstop. And we had no subs, so it was just the 11 of us out there playing nonstop. And I had to be keeper because our normal keeper is still injured, and it was hot.
It was too hot, bro.
Yeah, I know, swamp toe. And we won. I could not believe it. I think we beat the Vegas odds on that one. So we ended up going 11-0.
I know, that was hot.
Hey, we were like 800 right there.
Yeah. Oh, and then here's a little gift for you.
How'd you not?
Found my senior picture from my senior year of high school, and so I figured I would put that picture up there for those of you who need something to laugh at or just to give me a weird side eye. With that was then, this is now. We talked about class rings because that's what things he was looking for. That's why I'm in my little pre-mewing pose, because I had my class ring on so I could put it in the picture. And the bracelet that a girl made for me that I had a crush on, so I was trying to be all like, Turns out it didn't work. But it was worth a try.
Why do you look like George McFly?
Dude, that's a hey.
Who? This is George McFly, the guy from Back to the Future.
And by the way, I'm buying my DeLorean.
As you should.
When I'm 16, I see one right down the street. I'm buying that one.
I have these. They are optional. If you want to do it, you're more than welcome to. They are on my desk. It's the pink piece of paper. Don't grab the green one, because that'd be the advanced class, and it's just going to be confusing. But if you are wanting to, it is due whatever day you're planning on turning in the test. So if you're taking the test tomorrow, it's due tomorrow. If you're waiting until Friday, then you have until Friday to turn it in. This was my way of, again, trying to help you out. You can get up to 10 extra credit points, or if you're still wanting B points, you can get that instead. But that's up to you. I figured I'd put them out there to help you.
I've already seen 3 of them.
Can we grab one right now?
As long as after class, yeah.
4 of them.
Bruh. Then my goal for today is we'll do a little review. Actually, out of curiosity, before I talk about review, has anyone in here actually finished the book? So you've gotten to the end? Sweet. So then, those of you who for those of you who have not finished it, have any of you not finished it, but have gotten to where you find out where Eminem is? Okay. Just trying to get an idea of roughly where you are. So, from what I understand from talking to other students, the way today works is, those of you who have finished, I'm going to explain 2 of the big scenes. When they find Eminem, what happens in that scene with the LSD, and what's happening to his brain and the spiders and carrots. And then also at the very end, when Brian and Mark have their confrontation, and I'm going to talk about those 2 are the 2 big scenes I want to get into to explain. If you've not read it yet, it shouldn't really hurt you. It'll be more just make it more sense when you get a chance to read it. those of you who have read it, hopefully this helps it make more sense. Yes?
Can I have some scissors?
Mr. Brovicast,
Where you at? Every week.
actually, wait,
Uh-huh.
what does LSD do?
We're
Does
going
it,
to talk about it again
does
in
it
a
make
moment.
your mind like go in different places?
What is this?
Very much
I
so.
can hallucinate Steve Jobs.
So the end of chapter 6 was when Eminem, and how old is Eminem?
Oh,
13.
13.
And he drops out of school and runs away. So Eminem is now no longer in school and he's hiding out, and then for months he's gone. For the next several months throughout the book, Eminem is off doing his own thing and no one knows where he is. And this is where the friendship between Brian and Mark is starting to fall more and more apart, which again, they've been best friends since what, middle school, elementary, 10, 11, 9, something like that. And now all of a sudden they are growing apart, and that's what's going to come to a head here. Ooh. So, who is it that gets a job?
Brian.
And this is Brian, who starts working at the grocery
Because he
store.
said he'd take care of everyone.
Those of you who have finished the
Did you
book,
take a picture of a random dude in a grocery store?
yeah, he thought it was really weird. I said, smile.
Did you actually?
No, this was off the internet.
Yeah, you did. There's a bunch of Mountain Dews in there.
I know, I thought the same thing. Those are Mountain Dews, but no, this is actually it's a grocery store down in Florida.
I want some
I
Mountain
was gonna
Dews.
say that's so rude.
Right, it was so sussy. I thought the same thing. No, I just Googled grocery store bagger on Google, and this is what came
I
up.
swear I've seen that guy though. I mean, I swear I've seen him.
You got me. You've been to that grocery store. I have no
Wait,
idea.
where is it?
You know Canation?
Yeah.
That looks
He
like
just
Purdue.
said down in Florida.
How does he know
I
that?
thought you said down in Ohio.
That looks like Purdue.
The other Florida. So, to bring in money,
I see
Brian
that guy, bro. I
is now
swear.
working at a grocery store. What is it, now those of you who have gotten to the end, don't give it away. What is it that they are suspecting Mark is doing?
Drugs.
I don't know.
No.
Poker.
There you go. That he is now selling and stealing stuff and selling it, or the fact that he's gambling, because apparently Mark and Brian are so hard up for money they can't even afford like food at their house. So they're both trying to bring in money just to survive. Like they're not even getting money to go on dates. They're just getting money to pay for the utilities and be able to not have to starve to death. Then we get to this scene, which is where the whole Angela thing happens. And there's a little scene with Angela I want to touch on real quick,
Too many,
where we find out Angela used to date Brian.
really?
Remember back in the day, that's why they used to be going out together.
Yeah.
And
TikTok
that's
Riz
why
Party.
she-
Don't know.
Uh-huh.
And then she broke up with him together.
Nope, not that one. Must be this page.
TikTok
There we
Riz
go.
Party
So
game.
there's a scene where Mark and Brian run into Angela while they're out like driving around, and she's really drunk. But there's a couple things I want to hit on in this conversation. It was Angela and a bunch of other chicks, her type, by the way they dressed and the way they were acting. You can always tell when a girl wants to be picked up. Let's pull in, Mark said. He was smiling. Sure, I said, feeling with the old sense of thrill that something was up. Something was going to happen. We pulled into the parking lot, and immediately we were surrounded by girls. Out of the way! I want to see Angela. Brian! She yelled, and jumped for me the minute I got out of the car. Brian, I'm so glad to see you. She was pretty drunk. So, sorry. We find out that from previously we had on that she got married not too long between the fight at the getting hit in the head with the bottle, and now she got married to the guy that she was dating at the time. How old is Angela?
18.
16.
16, same age as them. Do you remember back in Outsiders when we talked about Sandy? Why did Sandy have to get married to Soda Pop?
Because she was pregnant.
Because she was pregnant. Keep that in mind.
Oh! I need something.
Yeah, did you want to spend points to go get some?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that's the draw to eating spicy things. It's like there's a drawback to that. Weird. Kids nowadays. So, we find out she got married also. She was pretty drunk. I let her hug me though, catching Mark's wink. Where you been keeping yourself, Angel? How's married life? She let go with a string of swear words, which told me pretty well what she thought of married life, her in-laws, and her husband. I never cared about him anyway. I thought I was having I thought I was going to have a, but it turns out I wasn't. And that's the only reason I married him, the louse. You're the only boy I ever cared about, Brian. So why did she have to get married?
To do kids.
She thought she was pregnant. And then when she find out,
She ain't.
she was not pregnant. So now she's married and no longer pregnant. And I'm not going to jump over to the part, but as she continues to talk, we find out that apparently the father of the guy that she married, so the father of the 16-year-old that she married, is now hitting on her all the time and grabbing her booty as she walks through the house. And she's like, he's being all kinds of creepy. So Angela is not having a good time because she got married thinking she was pregnant. She's not pregnant, and now the father-in-law is hitting on her and being creepy. And she's like, my life sucks.
Father-in-law?
Father-in-law.
That's weird.
It is, which means she's having a rough time. But it's okay. It's about to get a whole lot worse.
Is she gonna beat him? Oh.
So they decide to give her a ride, and she jumps in the car, and she's like, hey, let's go pick up some more alcohol. So they pick up some more alcohol for her until she gets so drunk, she passes out. Now, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the story, they talked about Angela's hair.
It's beautiful, long, and luscious.
There you go. It was said all the way down past her waist, and the fact there was this long black hair that she'd been combing forever, had been growing it out forever. And this is where Mark decides that he wants to get revenge. So how do you get revenge against a girl?
Cut her hair!
So that's what Mark does. And so he ends up cutting off all of her hair, like all of her hair. So she looks
Is that
like
11?
it's not 11, but it does look like 11. It's another girl with a shaved head. And so it ends up, now, realize, not only does he cut off all of her hair, but to add insult, when she's passed out, he then pulls up into her lawn of her house, throws her into the lawn, passed out, and then takes her hair, ties it into a knot, and throws it on top of her, so that her family's going to find her passed out in the lawn the next morning. This is how Mark gets his revenge, which leads to another big scene, but we just don't have time to get into it. But eventually, revenge is had against him also. But then we find out that apparently Mark and Brian share one bedroom, because again, they don't have a lot of money. And in their room, this is where Mark keeps all of his extra cigarettes. He puts like a pack of cigarettes underneath of his mattress. That's going to play a role. But Mark also knows where Eminem has been. And Mark finds out after Eminem ran away and is gone for months, turns out Eminem has been hiding at the hippie house this whole time. And so Brian finds out that Eminem's at the hippie house, and he goes and grabs Kathy, and they go to rescue Eminem. And this is where we have one of those big scenes where things happen. So in a moment, they're going to refer to one of the hippies as looking like he's from the Bible. So they're going to say he looks biblical. All that means is that the guy has a beard and long hair and is like wearing flowy clothes. So when he says he looks biblical, it just means he looks like a hippie. That's for Eminem. In case you're wondering why they were there.
Oh, I look like Eminem.
Are you round and yellow?
No, I can rack the booze yourself.
Totally makes sense. Let me jump to page 140 something. Where are you? Page 140 something. Come here, little page. This is where it is. Page 137. So this is as they come up. We walked up to the house. There were kids on the porch just watching the street. I stopped to talk with a biblical-looking guy. I'm looking for Baby Freak. Is he around? Yeah, he is. The guy was staring directly into my eyes. He had friendly, trusting eyes. Are you, like, a friend of his? Yes, I'm a good friend. And this is his sister. Kathy gave him the big smile she won me with. The guy smiled back. Ah, he's upstairs, I think. Suddenly the guy looked worried. He's been floating for a couple of days now. That's slang for? He's been high for days on end. Oh, no kidding, I said, keeping my cool, and Kathy followed my example. Talk to his travel agent, the hippie said. He's going to be the cat with the red hair inside. Travel agent? What's that mean? Kathy whispered as we went in. I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want her to feel the sudden cold waves of fear that I was feeling. So I said, I don't know. I can tell you what it means. So what he's referring to is normally if you're just buying something like marijuana, you get it from a drug dealer. But because LSD makes you hallucinate and see things that aren't there, people who sold other people, drug dealers who sold this, were called travel agents, because the people, when you took it, said you were going on a trip. And so people who go on trips, you use a travel agent, so that was their slang. So it means Eminem has been using this, not just marijuana.
So, since that's thin right now, is that called like edibles?
Edibles is still just marijuana. It's just a different form of it.
Yeah.
LSD is just a whole different thing altogether.
Are they thicker?
Yeah, they look like gummy bears.
What, the LSD?
Yeah.
Kind of. They're actually little stamps. Because they would dissolve on your tongue. The way the LSD chemical works, it's like, I don't know, it's like a chemical thing. But all it does is just dissolve, and so they would oftentimes just put it on like a piece of paper, and you can just put the paper on your tongue, or whatever that kid's doing. And so that's what we find out. This means that LSD, that Eminem has been on acid and not just grass, which is what makes you hallucinate, and apparently he's had a really bad time. We found who we were looking for, a big, heavy guy with fire-colored hair, beard, and mustache. We're looking for Baby Freak? I said. I was beginning to see why Eminem had acquired this other nickname. Most of the kids there were at least 17 or 18, with a lot of college-age kids. I mean, it was a real crowded place, but now I can't remember what everyone was doing. At least some of the kids were smoking grass. You could tell that by the smell. I was hoping the place didn't get raided while we were there. I mean, you can get busted just for being at a place where people are smoking pot. Yeah, Red said. Man, that kid is on a bad trip. Kathy made a funny, yelping little sound. Some of these freaks have been dropping acid. Baby wanted to try it, so I sat with him. But he's having a bad trip, man. Like, really bad. He's calmed down a little now, but all day today, me and some of these other cats have been holding him, keeping him from, like, jumping out the window. I felt like I was going to throw up. Kathy was as white as a sheet. Can we see him? She said in a tiny, expressionless voice. Sure. We followed him up the stairs, and he led us to the same room Mark and I had gone to the last time we were here. This time, no one was there except the blonde chick who was curled up on the bed asleep, and someone was huddled in the corner. To my surprise, Red walked over to the huddle. Hey, man, there's people here to see you. Are they spiders? The person didn't raise his head, but his voice was Eminem's. Nah, man, they're squares. Yeah. Yeah. You just have to wait till the end of class, though. Oh, sorry, it's behind my desk. So, with this, when he says that he's having a bad trip, with LSD, unlike most other drugs, the way it releases sort of things in your brain is you could either have really happy times or really scary times. And I'll tell you a story about a friend of mine in college who had a really scary time at the end of this. And that's what's happening with Eminem here, is he's having bad hallucinations about spiders that are attacking him. When he says they're squares, that was old slang, meaning that you don't do drugs, that you're like a dorky normal person. So squares were uncool people. He says they're squares. I'm hoping all of you are squares. Eminem looked up. I hardly recognized him. His hair was to his shoulders, and he was a lot thinner. He was dirty, and the expression on his face was one I'd never seen on him before. Suspicion. Hey, Eminem baby, it's me, Kathy. Kathy kneeled down in front of him. He was staring at her, but not like seeing her. Square spiders? He said, and his face was contorted in fear. But I don't want to see any spiders. No, it's me, Kathy, your sister. Don't you want to go home? I went to my stomach, Eminem said in a high, unnatural voice. He was talking too fast. I went down into my stomach, and all these spiders came out, and I never knew there were spiders in my stomach, and I was there 10 years, and all that time these spiders kept chewing on me, and they were big spiders. Kathy choked back a sob. Baby, what have you done to yourself? He seemed to finally see her. Kathy! Oh, I screamed and screamed and screamed, but nobody came to help me. He was shaking. He didn't look right. He looked sick. I kept trying to get back, but the spiders held me down and chewed on me, and the colors went in and out, and I listened to the colors, and they were screaming too. Yellow screamed loudest. The spiders were eating them! He kept trying to jump out the window, Red said. Like, all day. We took turns holding him down. What did this guy want? A medal? He had given him the stuff in the first place. Hey, Kathy, we ought to take him to the hospital? She looked at me quickly. Hospital? Then she nodded. Yeah, okay. Let me call Daddy first. She looked at Red. Do you have a phone I can use? He nodded, and she followed him out of the room. There was this other color, Eminem said to me seriously but half afraid, as if he thought I would turn into a spider any minute. I don't know its name. It told me, but I forgot. And it said I was being paid back for all the carrots I ate. I didn't know. I thought, I didn't know about the carrots before. I don't think it was my fault. He was crying. Tears were pouring down his face, but he hadn't changed his expression. He looked so thin and scared and not a bit like the Eminem I knew. Do you think I should be paid back for something I didn't know about? No, I said. I don't think it was your fault. I put my arm around him and held him, and he was shaking real bad. Kathy came back. Daddy's going to meet us at the hospital. Can you carry him? Yeah. I picked him up easily. He couldn't have weighed more than 90 pounds. I'm so tired. I was gone so long and I didn't have any sleep. I carried him down the stairs and out of that house. Nobody made any move to stop me. Nobody seemed to care. And there we stop on that part. So with this, what LSD does, as I said before, it makes the things in your spine where you get to see all of your senses, it disconnects them. Which, if you're an adult, can be sort of a, I'm sure, fun experience because you get to see things that aren't there. The problem is when you're younger, like Eminem at 13, when your brain is still growing, those connections are not solid. So the issue is sometimes when kids would do it, those connections would separate, and then because you're growing, they wouldn't come back correctly, and they wouldn't line up the way they're supposed to, and then you could have like permanent paranoia, or you could have things where your brain just never works right again. That's what's happening with Eminem, with his hallucinations.
So, like, you said his back? Like,
It goes in your spine. So where LSD impacts you is in your spine.
so your spine, like...
No, when you take it, the chemical goes through your system into your spine. Like that's where it interacts with things. Like smoking cigarettes goes into your lungs and stuff like that. This one just happens to go with whatever's in your spine-ish thing. I don't know. So I was going to tell you, my first time I ever interacted with someone on LSD was my freshman year of college. And I had gone out with some friends to a house party, which was in like this giant basement of this building. And a friend of mine named Dustin had taken it. And so I had no idea what to expect. I never saw him before when I was growing up, and he was on it, and I was like, okay. And at this party, I was the one that was babysitting him, like the one that was not drunk or high or anything. I was there trying to keep things safe, and he kept freaking out next to me. Because I remember like we were dancing, and they had a disco ball on the ceiling with like the light shining up on it. And as the disco ball was spinning, Dustin kept like jumping and like looking at people, and he's like, "There's spiders! There's spiders! There's spiders!" And he kept yelling, "Spider!" I'm like, "What are you yelling about?" And he started like freaking out to the point where he started like trying to run out of the place, and I had to hold him back. I was like, "What is wrong?" He was convinced, I'll take this from you, that there were these spiders that were jumping around and trying to attack people. So after a while, I figured out what the spiders were that he was seeing that was causing the issue. Was there were girls there wearing jewelry, like necklaces, and whenever the disco ball light would hit a necklace, it would have like that sparkle effect. And he saw that sparkle effect of like the little rays coming off it, and he thought they were spiders that were jumping from one person to the next, and he thought the spiders were chasing him. And it got to the point where he almost got into a fist fight with me because I was trying to convince him that there were no spiders, and he fully believed that there were spiders jumping around attacking all the people there. And it freaked me out because of how serious he was with what he saw when I was like, dude, there is nothing there. So that's what's happening to Eminem. He ends up going to the hospital where the doctor ends up saying that most likely he is never going to recover from this because they're saying that his wiring is never going to be right the way it is. He can probably never have kids again, and that Eminem's never going to be the same. This is where Brian wants to get revenge. Who does he want to get revenge on?
On that rainbow.
The people who sold the drugs. And so now Brian is tired, he's upset, and he really wants to get revenge because he's upset about what happened to Eminem. And that brings us to our next big scene.
Yes.
Which is going to be where Brian has a confrontation with Mark on page 144. So here, Brian's really mad. He wants to get revenge. He's exhausted. He's tired. And he gets home. And I told you before that part of the book made me cry. This is that part of the book that made me cry.
Oh.
And it's not from death. It's from something else. I was surprised to see how late it was when I got home from the hospital. Mom was asleep. I went into my room and lay down without bothering to turn off the light. Mark wasn't home yet. I was tired. I felt drained, empty. Nothing can wear you out like caring about people. I was tired, yet I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. I closed my eyes, but I just kept seeing pictures. All these people were spinning around in my head. Mark and Charlie, and Mike, and Angela, and Kathy, Eminem, Mr. Carlson, Tim, Curly Shepherd. Life had seemed so simple once. Now, it suddenly seems so complicated. I can remember a time when my only worry had been paying Charlie the $3 I owed him. Things used to be simple. Now, they weren't. I wanted a cigarette bad. I half-heartedly searched my pockets, but I knew I didn't have any. Then I remembered Mark's spare carton. And where does he keep it? Underneath the bed. Mark's spare carton rolled off the bed and reached under his mattress. I felt something strange. Pulled it out. It was a long cylinder-like thing. I unscrewed one end, and all these pills came rolling out. Now, I'm not dumb by any means. I've never used drugs except for a couple of tries with grass, but I knew what they looked like. And I looked at this bunch of pills. There were hundreds of them, and it was like a machine in my head. Went click, 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 and it came up with an answer I didn't want. Mark was selling this stuff. This was way too many pills for anybody to have if he was just taking them himself, and besides, I would have noticed something different about Mark if he'd been taking them. You can't use drugs and not show it. I knew too many kids who were users not to know that. Mark was selling. Mark was a pusher. That was where he was getting his money. That was why he had known about the hippie house. That was why they had known him. That was why he had known where to look for Eminem. Eminem. Kathy. Eminem was in the hospital, and maybe he was messed up for life. And Mark was selling the stuff that made him that way? Okay, maybe this wasn't LSD, but it was a step in that direction. God only knows what all Mark had been selling. I thought about that blonde, dead-looking chick, about Eminem screaming about spiders, about Kathy half hysterical with grief. I thought about Mr. Carlson and the bitter doctor, and the whole mess was swirling around in my head, and it felt like it would burst wide open. When I thought about the cause of all this misery, I became very cool, and I very calmly called the cops. Eminem had lost his mind, Kathy was hurting, and I did something about it. Then I sat down on a chair in the front room and waited. It seemed only a minute later when Mark came in. "Hey man, you still up?" Then he stopped. "What's the matter?" "Oh, Brian, you look awful, man. What is it?" I held out the cylinder. "Oh, you found them, huh?" "Ah, don't worry, buddy. I don't take them. I have a good enough time just like I am." "And just how are you anyway?" "What?" "Eminem's in the hospital. Acid trip. They think he may have lost his mind." "Oh man, that's awful. That poor kid." Then he looked at me. "What, Brian? I don't look like that." "No, I said I don't take them." "What, don't you believe me?" "I believe you." "We needed the money, man. You know that. I tried getting a job, but with my police record, nobody would even hire me. Then I met this guy on the ribbon. He said he'd set me up, and I figured I don't have to take it to sell it, so what's the worry?" "Eminem," but I was too tired, too numb to talk. "Oh, is that what's bugging you?" "Listen, man, I didn't sell Eminem anything. He got it from somebody else. Look, Brian, they're going to get it from somebody if they want it, so why can't I be the one to make some money? I mean, I never forced it on anybody. I never tried to talk somebody into using drugs just so I could make a buck. He could have talked all night. I wouldn't have changed my mind. This was wrong. For the first time in years, I thought about that golden-eyed cowboy who had been Mark's father. Was Mark a throwback? To what? I wondered tiredly why I had never seen it before. Mark had absolutely no concept of what was right and what was wrong. He didn't obey any laws because he couldn't see that there were any. Laws, right and wrong, they didn't matter to Mark because they were just words. Brian, what is it? Okay, listen, if it bugs you that much, dude, I'll quit. I'll stop selling if you don't like it. I mean, shoot, I never thought it'd even bother you. I sort of thought you knew about it. Don't you drag me into this, I thought. Don't you try to make me out to be blind just because you are. But out loud I said, I called the cops on you. And I felt as if I was talking in my sleep. Mark went white. What? What did you say? We could already hear the sirens down the street. Brian, you know what something like this would do to me with my record. Brian, tell me you're lying, man. Mark was pleading desperately. I thought maybe he would run for it, but he didn't. He just sat down in a chair opposite me. He was white, and his eyes were black, with a rim of gold around them. He looked the way he had when he had been clobbered with that bottle. Brian? He said, like he was trying hard to understand, but like he was totally confused, like he thought maybe I would answer in a foreign language. Why are you doing this to me, buddy? Brian, just tell me. I couldn't tell him. I didn't know. The police arrived, and of course Mom woke up. She didn't know what was going on. She could only stand helpless in the kitchen doorway while the police questioned me and rounded up the drugs and slapped handcuffs on Mark. They advised Mark of his right to remain silent, and he did. And he just stood there, quivering, watching me while I told the cops things that would put him behind bars for years. Then a cop said, "Let's go, kid." And it seemed to dawn on Mark what was happening. He looked quickly from the cops to me and then cried, "My God, Brian, no, you're not going to let them take me to jail." Didn't he know? I was the one that put him there. The cop jerked Mark around and shoved him out the door. Suddenly, it was deadly quiet, just the distant siren and Mom's quiet sobbing, and I went into the bathroom and threw up. I was sick. The reason that one hit me so hard when I was a kid was, one, I read this book at the end of 8th grade as opposed to the end of 7th grade, but my two best friends that I'd had all throughout junior high and middle school had started going down that path, and it sort of scared me seeing what could happen. But here's the other thing. In that scene, who is in the wrong? Who is the bad person? The fact that you can't answer that quickly tells me something. Because in there, it's hard to be mad at Brian because he called the police on someone dealing drugs. That's what we tell kids to do. He did what he is supposed to do. But, on the other end, why is Mark selling drugs?
To make money.
And who's the money for?
For the family, Brian.
Is he keeping it for himself?
No.
So Mark is doing this not because he wants to buy an Xbox, not because he's trying to get a car, but because his mom and brother don't have enough food to eat. So he's selling it to try and help them. So was Mark doing it to be evil?
No.
Was Brian calling the cops to be evil?
No.
Does it ruin both of their lives? And so that's what broke me, is that's what real life is like. When I saw this path going with my own friends, I realized that no matter what path I chose, it was going to suck. Someone was going to get hurt and something bad was going to happen, which is what happens there, is the fact that it ruins Mark's life, ruins Brian's life, and all because they were trying to do the right thing, but sometimes the right thing ruins everything. And then that brings us to one last scene. Brian breaks up with Kathy because he feels so guilty about what he did to his best friend that he feels he does not deserve happiness, so he breaks up with his girlfriend. It's all right. She finds a new boyfriend. But then The police end up contacting Brian and asking him to come into the jail, and he gets to confront Mark one last time. I'm going to read that quick scene. The police told me they hoped I could influence him in a positive way. They didn't say how, though. I thought we'd have to talk through like a wire dealing, like you see in all the prison movies, but instead, we were just left sitting alone in a room, which I remember as being strangely empty. "Hiya, buddy," Mark greeted me. "Are you slumming it?" I couldn't speak. I had a real bad pain in my throat. Mark had changed. He had lost a lot of weight, but somehow it had stretched his skin over his bones, hiccups, and slanted his eyes. He hadn't lost his looks, but exchanged them. He looked dirty somehow, and hard. Things I'd never seen in him before. His strangely sinister innocence was gone, and in its place was a more sinister knowledge. He seemed to be pacing like an impatient, dangerous, caged lion. How goes it, man? So what's the action like in here? If I told you how it was in here, you'd be sick. You know, I didn't have to see you. I wanted to, though. I just had to make sure. Make sure of what? Make sure I hated you? I suddenly remembered that time so long ago when Kathy had looked at Mark, and for a moment, I'd hated him. And I'd wondered what it would feel like to experience that feeling all your life, to hate the person you loved best. Come on, Mark. Mark, I didn't know what I was doing. Can it, buddy? This is a groovy place, ain't it? Seems like my home now. I hear you've been causing trouble? Yeah, I don't seem to be able to get away with things anymore. I thought I'd break down and cry, but I didn't. Listen, man, you straighten up and they'll let you out early on probation or parole or whatever it is, and you can come home and I'll get you a job at the store. Like hell you will, Mark said. In the same easy, pleasant voice, he continued, I ain't never going back there again. When I get out of here, you ain't never gonna see me again. And there, my kid getting up while I'm still talking? How silly of you. And that's where we stop. Tomorrow,